Um, I'll go to Jim Kite first.
Thank you, Mayor. My question is probably going to be as much to staff as to these folks, but this notion of local contribution seems to kind of go back and forth. This is a state highway. It's ultimately their job to build, maintain, and everything else. I was surprised to hear that there's been local contribution in the past. So I would like to ask staff to provide a breakdown of that at some point in the future. I see that according to legislation, there's no obligation, but it basically the message I'm hearing, Cameron and Lindsay, is that there needs to be a local contribution or it's never going to get built. Is that fair?
I don't think that characterization is 100% correct. It certainly would help assemble the resources to move it to construction sooner. And that's sort of the incentive is, the more that we can have a firm understanding of what resources are available, we can move that project to construction faster. It's not saying it wouldn't get done without a local contribution, but it might get done a little bit differently, might be phased a little bit differently to make it affordable bites at the pie, so to speak.
I see. So this freeway, which we drive regularly, all of us, and it is straight out of the 80s. No barricade in the middle. It needs an upgrade. Unless there's almost the message is unless there's a local contribution or tolling, the project won't go forward. And what I'm hearing is that's not the case. That we have a chance to have this thing built without that, because we've been asking for the state, it's their highway, to act for 10 years. And so now there's folks in the public that want to blame this council for the fact that there's some ambiguity in terms of funding. So I'd like all of that kind of worked out in the next few weeks. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Kurt Skoog next.
Thank you. My question is to Lindsay. Just to follow a little bit on Jim's question, as I talk to residents and people who drive this corridor regularly, not one of them has said we don't need to fix it. So from my limited conversations, there's no doubt that it needs fixed, and the city's been pushing for it for a long time. The question I hear, to build on Jim's question, is why hasn't KDOT taken steps in the last 10 or 15 years south of 435 to address this issue? We know the pavement is 50 years old and failing, and we have bridges that will soon fail. And it's a KDOT responsibility, and if you can't answer today, we need to answer that question for the residents to explain, here's how we got to where we are today. So Lindsay, if you feel comfortable answering it now.
Sure. I completely understand. And actually, I'm a resident of Overland Park. I live here as well and drive it every day. So I completely understand the improvements that need to happen. I'm one of those cars that gets stuck in the congestion at peak travel times, and maybe occasionally map to see if I should be going down Null to get to 435 instead of taking 69 because it might be faster. So I completely understand. When it comes to kind of improving the state highway system and doing expansion projects like what is needed on US 69, KDOT has a history of doing 10-year transportation programs. The last 10-year transportation program was the T-Works program, and it concluded in 2020. And we still had 23 projects that needed to be delivered from that program, that revenues that had been deposited in the State Highway Fund had been taken out for other state government purposes. So we did not have the revenues to complete those projects. When we built the Eisenhower Legacy Transportation Program, or what we call the IKE program, we worked really hard to make sure that we were building in the flexibility so that we could be more responsive to community needs and regional needs. This project has been advocated for even during the T-Works program, and the city has been a great partner with us looking at studies along this corridor to determine what additional improvements would be needed. And so I would say we have been very aware of the need on this corridor, the declining pavement condition and bridges that are going to need to be replaced. We're very aware of that. And we wish that we had more revenues to be more proactive on some of these corridors and bridges. We've got a lot of needs across the state, and we just don't have all the revenues that we would need to be able to address them. So just to give you guys a concept of the money, the IKE program is going to be about a $9.9 billion program. It takes about $500 million a year just to maintain the state highway system at its current size. So those are really light actions like mills and overlays, things like that. To modernize or expand the system, we are very conscious that we're continuing to add to that system, which only increases that maintenance cost. So we're trying to be very strategic and use our money very wisely for the taxpayers. So I appreciate the position you all are in, and I know that it's a lot to come and ask to partner with you all on a state highway. We also know and understand that this corridor is very important to the city of Overland Park, and I think working together, we can make sure that we can build a corridor that's going to serve both your needs as a community that is continuing to grow and the state system needs as well.
Lindsay, thank you for that answer. I think that we're going to need to better understand the timeline alternatives. Our residents are going to want to understand that, but I think it's important to note in this meeting that this corridor is not only vital to Overland Park, it serves the economic engine of the state of Kansas that funds a big portion of the highway funds that are going to the rest of the state. So that's the frustration I hear from our residents. Overland Park has a long history of supporting the state and where we understand our role, but they also want to understand the options. And so I look forward to your continued work on gathering input from the residents and pulling together additional information. Lindsay, thank you for all your work that you've done.